Well, you may not think you fear money. If anything, you'd probably welcome more of it. But maybe you fear not making enough or losing it or how it's not getting you out of debt. The fact is, fear pervades most of our thoughts about money. But our next guest says you don't need to be afraid anymore. Dan Celia is here with us now. Dan, welcome to the 700 Club.
Thank you, Wendy. It's great to be here.
This is such an interesting topic. Now, you had a successful business, Dan, and you sold it all to go into the ministry. Why did you do that?
I did. I sold it, not sure what the ministry was going to be that I would go into. I came to the Lord late in life. So I've been on the air 20 years. I'd only been a believer for 10 years when I sold the trust business. So I came off of Wall Street. I started a trust business, had that for 22 years, and then sold it to a bank. Yeah.
Now, you get emails from people all the time asking how can they guard their money, how can they protect your finances, but you say that shouldn't be the first order of business, that they actually need to look at their hearts. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think, as the Lord told us in Luke, and in Matthew, that we've got to be, we know where our treasure is, and our treasure is where our heart is, and our heart's got to be in the right place. And oftentimes, when it comes to our money, our heart is where the world tells us it ought to be.
Yeah.
And I think that robs us of some of the joy that we can have with our money. We shouldn't be, we should be concerned about what we can do. Money is a very powerful thing in the hands of God.
Yeah.
And we need to make sure that we keep it firmly placed in the hands of God.
Okay.
Because
he doesn't need our money. He owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, but
Yes.
it's certainly important.
Well, it's, I always talk about giving. And I talk about giving in relationship to the incredible act of worship that I believe it is. And sometimes as we grow more and more fearful of our money, we begin to rob ourselves of the incredible act of worship that giving is.
Wow.
And I say that about giving because I believe, I'm not a theologian, but I believe that the Lord talks so much about money because he knows we're a fallen man. Obviously, he knows that we are going to cling to that we're going to hold very tightly to that. It's going to be a very difficult thing. Now, we're instruments of God's peace here on earth. And as instruments, we need to be willing to be played in the orchestra that he has orchestrated. And we need to understand that God's not coming to the 700 Club and writing a check to pay the electric bill. He is dependent upon his people to do that. It's important that we do that, but it's important that we do it in a joyful way, because I think since we hold so tightly to it, when we let go of it, I believe it brings a great deal of joy to God.
Well, what are some practical ways, some ways that we can overcome our fear of money?
Well, I think we have to have a perspective about our overall stewardship. And it goes back to we've got to first be good stewards of the gospel. We're called to do that in 1 Corinthians 4, and we need to be a good steward of the gospel. And we need to understand that our stewardship is far more than just our money. But when it comes to our money, we need to understand that if we are faithful tithers, hopefully everyone is, and we're giving beyond that, we don't own the other 90%. It's still God's. And he is expecting us to be good and faithful stewards of what he's entrusted to us to manage.
What do you say to the person who tithes faithfully but is still struggling financially?
Well, I think that we have to look hard at the joyfulness that we are tithing with. Is it an act of worship?
So this goes back to the heart again.
It goes back to the heart. And, we are giving sometimes, so many people are tithing so reluctantly. It is under some sort of mandate that they've either put on themselves or maybe a pastor has put on them. We're not giving with a joyful heart. We're not giving out of an act of worship. And Wendy, let me tell you, I've sat across the conference room table and kitchen tables from a lot of very high net worth people.
Yeah.
And I can tell you from the people that I've sat across from some of the people that were missionaries all their life, I have never met anybody that gave joyfully all their life and was struggling financially. Really, I never have. And so I think it's just our heart, where our heart is.
That's so good. And we are coming to the end of the year. What are some tips you can give us for these end of year giving and to get our financial house in order before 2018?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think one of the things we have to do is be committed, sold out, committed and convicted that we are going to participate in the kingdom of God here on earth with our money, that we are going to be actively participating with that we are going to give to those things that are honoring God, those things that are working for the kingdom. We've got to be sold out, committed for that. That's number one. Yeah. Convicted that comes before everything else. The other thing is, we've got to relax about, I'm afraid I'm not going to have enough. I'm afraid I'm not going to pay my bills. We've got to work hard.
Yeah.
We've got to be working hard. And we've got to use all the opportunities God gives us to earn income. And remember, our greatest asset is our ability to earn, and we've got to give.
Well, you can get more practical tips by getting Dan's latest book. It's called The Fear of Money, and make sure you pick up a copy of the Fear of Money study guide as well. Dan, thanks for being with us.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, Wendy.
Advice.
Thank you.